Today, I have the privilege of talking to the creators behind the current G.I. Joe Energon universe comic book, Joshua Williamson, Tom Reilly. Welcome to Audible Interlude.
Hello, everyone. Hi.
So we've before we hit the record button, we already spent a little bit of time talking about classified series, which we'll talk more about as we get into things here. But before we discuss the Joe comic, which, by the way, you guys are doing an absolutely incredible job with that. The fact that we have, because one of the big things when the classified line launched was, well, we need new media. We need something to go with it.
For sure. Yeah.
And I don't think anybody could have ever envisioned this entirely new mythology that you and Robert Kirkman and the Skybound crew are creating and have put together. It's really, it was a great time to be a Joe fan when Classified came back and was so successful.
Yeah.
But now it really feels like we're in unprecedented time where it's not just, okay, cool, we've got a comic book, or cool, a cartoon's coming. Now we're in times where, those things are happening, but they're being created by people who genuinely care about all these properties and who, from everything that we've read, because we've been reviewing all of the Joe comics on the show, have a tremendous respect, but also a new vision for what G.I. Joe is and can be.
Yeah.
What background-wise, we'll start with Tom. What is your background just with comic book art in general? Like, how did you get drawing? What led you to doing it professionally?
Well, I think I decided I wanted to be a comic artist in college. I went to the Rhode Island School of Design here in Providence and was just kind of studying illustration. That was my major. And I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do. And then I just figured that I could give comic books a shot because I like the characters. I like that sort of sequential drawing. And I figured, why don't I give this a shot? Not knowing how absolutely difficult it was going to be. So,
well, your style lends itself, or at least what you're bringing to Joe, the way that you're able to move back and forth between intense action scenes and exposition and character development, it's what we like to call an easy read. There's no difficulty navigating between panels. Everything has this, the forward momentum of each issue is there in the artwork. Where'd you learn that style? Who are your influences? Or is that something that you kind of figured out on your own of how to actually tell a story and not just draw pretty pictures?
I love a lot of those less is more type artists like Alex Toth. Chris Somney is a huge influence for me.
Yeah.
Doc Shaner, Darwin Cook, Bruce Timm, Mike Mignola. Just the people who kind of simplify stuff and make it very readable. Because a lot of things are going on in this book. A lot of different characters and like compositions can get kind of crazy. So for it to be readable is very important. And sometimes it's important to know what not to put on the page so that you can keep it readable. And I'm glad that you think it's an easy read. Hopefully not too easy. You got to look at some of those panels a little bit.
Well, and that's the thing is that we often talk about when we're doing our reviews is, oh, I didn't catch this until the second time I went through. There'll be little details where you realize, oh, wow, they foreshadowed this on page 2. Oh, we didn't realize it until page 10. Like when, oh, they set this up. This is exactly, we knew this is what was going to happen. We just didn't see it yet because we didn't have the full story. It's every issue has been a very compelling visual read. Joshua, for your part, how did you get into writing? Where did your interest in creating stories and working with characters come from?
Well, I grew up in a house with comics. Both my parents already read comics when I was a kid, so I've never not been a comic reader. And I think even as far back as elementary school, I was like, I want to make comics. I didn't really know what that meant as much. It was like what you would get from reading Wizard magazine, things like that. But it was like, reading Wizard or Hero or those older magazines and stuff. And I was like, I just really wanted to work in comics, and so it was like by the time I was Like I was definitely that annoying kid at the comic book store every day kind of thing, like sitting on the ground reading comics, you know, and I was just always that kid. I just wanted to make comics. And you know, I was always just like coming up with story ideas and just stuff. You know, I'd have notebooks full of ideas for different comics I wanted to do. And also because I came up in a moment where it wasn't just about, you know, Marvel and DC, but it was like toward the end of the 80s where it was like you had the big black and white movement, which was stuff like Ninja Turtles, you know, and then you're getting all these creator owned books that were coming around like Mage, and then you're getting, and obviously the Image boom where it was like, now it was like you had all these different options where it was like when I was really little, it was like there's Marvel and DC and then Ninja Turtles, you know, and it's like, and then there were things that started to open up from there where it was like there was Dark Horse, there was Image, like things started really brewing. And so for me, it was like, oh, you could do things, you could do a lot with this, you know. And then by the time I was in high school, I just worked at the comic store, and then I went to college. I went to college for graphic design and learning art because I was just like, I want to know how to do this, however I can do it, whether it's writing it, making it, production. So even when I was in college, like I learned, I've drawn 3 comics. They're all awful, but I've drawn them. And, but I know how to do, you know, how to do flats and colors and inks and letters and production. Like even my first Image books, they weren't even like Image didn't really touch them. Like it was me handling a lot of the production work on them and dealing with the printer myself. So I actually learned how to do everything I could. And it was funny, like I wanted to write, but it really felt like there was a Lion Wizard at the time. Like it was easier to get into the NBA as a player than it was to break in as a comic book writer because there's less jobs, you know? And so I was just like learning everything I could about it. Like I was obsessed. I was on this mission. Like I'm going to make comic books, and I love telling stories. So whatever avenue I can get in to do that, and I would do a little bit of work with video game companies. By the time I was in college, it was interesting, like trying to get internships or trying to get anything. And even when I got out of college, it was like trying to get any kind of job, even just as an assistant editor. It was like you need to have more experience. And so I was just making books. Like I was going out making mini comics. I would do work for people. Like if I had friends that wanted to make comics, I would help them make the books, and I would do the production for them. And then it was like I would meet people who wanted to make comics, and I started making them for them. So it was just like this nonstop obsession since I was a little kid to tell stories is ultimately what it is, you know? And then, yeah, at one point it was like, I remember talking to publishers and they were like, oh, you need to have more experience if you want to do this. And so I was like, I'm just making more books. And then eventually those publishers started calling and being like, you know, we don't want you as an editor, we want you as a writer. Can you, like, we're going to hire you for jobs and stuff, like hire for gigs. But that's the short version of it, I feel like. I was just, I like telling stories. So it's like, you know, however I could do to get to that. And I really love comic books. So it all sort of thankfully worked out. Like I'm very happy to do what I do.
Well, I think the common thread with all the creators I've spoken to is the compulsion to create. Like you just can't stop creating, whether it's drawing, painting, writing, whatever the case
whatever
may
I'm
be.
doing, and I like things, and I like puzzles and stuff like that. So I think all these things. I think storytelling a lot of times is ultimately problem solving and your puzzles. I mean, it's like what Tom is doing, where it's like I give Tom a shit ton of information, and then Tom is like, how do I make this fit into these pages? How do I actually tell this? And that's one thing that Tom is really great at, is that clarity. Because one of the things that I really think about a lot of times is ultimately that is our goal, is to tell a story. So what is the best way to tell that story? And that's something I think about a lot when I'm working, is that like, what is that clarity of story? What is that clarity of emotion? Like, what are you trying to tell me? And what are you, because I think that some storytelling, you should leave it open to interpretation in terms of the themes of what it is. But at the same time, it's like a joke. Like a joke has a beginning, middle, and end. You know what I mean? And you just want to, like, good jokes work. You don't have to explain it. You just tell the joke and the punchline hits. And so that's how I see when we're doing these books, is like clarity of storytelling, clarity of emotion. Those things are really important to me. And so when we were doing G.I. Joe, that was something that I really looked at a lot. And it's one of the reasons why I think like Tom and I work together really well, is because Tom is also thinking about that, of like, what is the cleanest way I can just tell you this story? That's why, when we're doing the book, I just try to maintain that, because ultimately that's what we're trying to do, is just tell a story, you know, or, you know, we want to entertain people with the story. So what's the cleanest way I can get that information to you? That's all the stuff when I'm working.
Circling back to Josh saying that he used to draw and flatten color stuff, having a writer who has got sort of insight into the artistic nature of comics is very helpful. Sometimes you'll get a writer who maybe doesn't know what goes into drawing a page, and so he'll ask you in a panel to draw maybe 3 or 4 panels worth of actions in one panel. Stuff
you can
like that.
You can only say "and" so many times in a panel.
Yeah,
you say
some guy.
No, you gotta have like it's all about like one of the things that I try to do is just be like, what is the point of this page? And even there are times with Tom where it's like, I'll write a little note like, this is what we want this page to do. Like, this is the point of this page. But yeah, I do recognize that like and I talk about this a lot with the other artists I work with, that just the fact that I have that background, I know helps them sometimes because I'm very mindful of them, what they're working on. A lot of times the scripts it's interesting, like scripts are different than a lot of like comic scripts are interesting because they're really written as like letters to the artist you're working with, like your partner. That's really what it is. Like you're my teammate and I'm writing you like a letter is how I see it. Like, I mean, I don't like working on a book if I don't know who the artist is. And if ever it's interesting, like if I've never worked with them before or anything like that. But that's how I always see the scripts as like they're not intended to be read by the audience, they're intended to be read by Tom.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like it's written
Right.
But yeah. Anyway, yeah.
So you mentioned a fondness for puzzles, and it's interesting because really when dealing with G.I. Joe within the Energon universe, it really is kind of like you guys have tons and tons and tons of puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
That you know what each one is, and as the Energon universe develops, it's figuring out where those pieces go in this story that you're trying to tell. And we're not going to do any, hey, are you going to do this? Or when is so-and-so showing up? But as far as mapping it out, how far ahead is the vision? Like, do you have a series of sort of goals and endpoints that once you get to them, you'll branch out from there?
Yeah, I mean, we have a pretty big plan. I actually just saw Tom 2 weeks ago, I think was right. 3 weeks ago at New York Comic-Con. Yeah, time is weird. But I just saw Tom and we had dinner at New York Comic-Con, and I just told Tom everything that's planned for like years out. Like just like here's what happens, you know, and talk about all the stuff going on. We do have a plan going out pretty far. We definitely make it so there are landmarks. We're always, you know, like listen, we want to make sure that the book is what matters and doing what's best for the book. So we have the ability to pivot.
Right.
You know,
right.
like,
yeah, it's not all locked in. Yeah.
It's not locked into the point where we can't change something, but it's like, and, you know, as I'm writing, there are times where I'm like, oh, this is the better idea. Like even there's an arc coming up. I think it's the 5th arc in the book. I realized something I wanted to change about the ending, and I realized this last week, Tom, and I told Ben yesterday, but it was like,
okay.
Oh, yeah, you don't know it yet, but I was like, oh, I want to change this one thing, and that's going to change this other thing. So it's like we do kind of look at those things, and it's like, you know, it was interesting with this book because it was like with just all of the Energon universe in general is like, okay, you take this mythology we know we love, and we're going to tweak a couple things, right? So it's like, okay, so I always sometimes I look at story as like you have this pond, and I'm going to throw a rock in that pond, and we're going to watch how that rock ripples out, right? So it's like with Energon, if I throw Energon into the G.I. Joe world, what happens because of it? Like, what does Energon do? You know, and like, we had really early on, we knew we needed to have like some kind of MacGuffin, and that became Energon. And it was funny because I think we started talking about Energon being this connected piece between all the books, and then I remember Skybound was like, "That's crazy because we want to call it the Energon universe," and I was like, "Yay! It all comes together. It all fits."
Nice.
But you know, it's like we looked at these things where it's like, let's just tweak some of these ideas. But yeah, you know, so it was like Cobra Commander. Let's make Cobra Commander someone who doesn't retreat. Like that's one little tweak. Like you're never gonna hear him yell retreat. So you know what I mean. So it's like that one little tweak. What is that? How does it change his character? Looking at Duke and being like, okay, Duke has said this. You know, he's a man of action. All right, so let's take that and tweak it. Let's make him a little impulsive, right? So it's like he always acts first, thinks second, right? So it's like, okay, let's make him that character and have that be his arc of him being like, maybe I should slow down. You know, so it's like we were looking at these things. You know. But yeah, we planned stuff out really far, and then I talked to Robert and Sean and Ben fairly regularly. You know, just different people working on the books. You know, I would text with Daniel when he was doing Transformer stuff, just to be like, "Hey, I'm doing this. You're doing this. Let's talk about these pieces." And then again, like we just sat down in New York and we just like, here's years worth of stories we have planned. Like let's just go through it all, and we have a meeting pretty soon to do it again to talk about it. So it's like we just. It's interesting. It's like my focus is on G.I. Joe. Like that is really my focus. But it's like I do talk to Robert about Transformers plans and So we do look at this stuff and say, how are they going to come together and connect? It's a lot of conversations, a lot of whiteboards. But it's fun because some of these things have a framework already. You know, it's like I've said before in other interviews where it's like whenever I go to write a character, introduce a character, the first thing I do is I go back and look at if this character was created by them or in that window. I go back and I look at what Larry wrote on the file cards. It's the first thing I do, you know. And it's like Major Blood. It was like go and read the file card. Like everything, I start there to be like, that is who that person is at their core. That is their core point, and we can change things around it because obviously Energon and all these pieces are getting thrown at them that will change them. But I go back and look at that card, and so when we're talking about the stories and we're like, oh, we're gonna introduce this character, I go look at the card and I go, okay, how is this character, like you're going back to the puzzle thing, it's like, how is this character gonna fit into the story we're telling? And there are times where they don't. We go, okay, we have to pivot. We don't want to use this character because we don't want to shove somebody in. We want to make sure it still fits. You know, it's like there was a lot of debate on Raptor being in the book at one point, and that was more me being like just a nerd and wanting to use Raptor and I like this character. And I had to justify why. Like I couldn't just be like, I like this character, I'm throwing him in.
Because he looks cool.
He looks cool. He's rad looking. Yeah, I was like, I think. But also, one of the things with this book is, and this has been always been one of the things that Robert said from the very beginning, is like, don't do the expected thing. You know, like there's certain characters, certain stories, and we don't want to repeat history. That's a big thing. It's been really interesting with this. Is I think the expectation when you do a reboot is you're going to repeat things, and I'm like, no, we don't want to repeat things. Like we want to try really hard to not do that. You know,
well, that's what's making it so engaging. Is that, like you said, you're using those file cards as like the core of what you're working with. But it's almost kind of like a band doing a cover song. Like, I've already got the original song. I don't need the same thing again. Give me something new. Give me your take. Give me your flavor of it. And that's what's made this so engaging is we're getting it's these characters are all and even some of the scenarios are recognizable. Like they resonate with us, but it's new. That's a huge part of what's making this so successful is that it's satisfying in a way that just retreading the Cobra Civil War that we've seen basically twice already. Like, that's not interesting. Don't do that again. Give us new. And that's exactly what the Energon universe has been so far.
Yeah. Have you read, did they send you issue 13 to read?
We've got 13. Okay. I have not read it yet because we can't put our review up until I think it's the 5th, maybe, or the 3rd.
Yeah.
So
I think it's best issue.
Yeah, we record on Mondays, so I'm gonna read it over the weekend. We'll record our review on Monday, and then we'll have it ready to go. So I didn't want to get ahead of things that we can talk about. So I was like, we'll leave that to this time,
I guess, yeah.
But we are super stoked, and we've already baked into our schedule the fact that we're going to be doing 2 a month now instead of the 1 a month.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Tom. It's been double shipping is hard because Tom is
going to be brutal.
And
there's no
we're fighting. It's fine.
It's all you. There's no fill in through the Dreadnought War.
No.
Nope.
It's all, yeah. No, we. Yeah, he's in it. Tom is in it.
Wow. It's all right though. It's all right.
That's heavy though. Even without because I love, again, the pacing has been so good because you'll have these interstitial issues with like Night Force, in between the big story arcs that are integral to the larger story that's being told, but also are a nice little break issue between arcs, which is a great way to do things. So yeah, Dreadnought War just beginning to end. Boom. Big
Tom,
event.
It's awesome. I mean, it looks wild. Like I think that these are, I don't know, I'm really proud of these issues a lot. And I think like 13 again, I think 13 is probably it's interesting. Originally 13 was, we were going to do this story earlier and we knew we hadn't earned it yet. We needed to, so we pushed it back to this window. I'm just really happy with it. Like I freaking love these issues a lot. So I hope when you get a chance to check them out this week, I hope you like them. I hope like 13 for sure.
Oh,
big swings are being taken.
Yeah,
we are very excited. Well, so many big swings have already been taken. One of the things, obviously, we don't have a whole heck of a lot of time to get into the cartoon coming up, but the going through Duke, Cobra Commander, Destro, all the miniseries, and then into G.I. Joe. There's been a lot of somewhat more graphic content than we're used to with G.I. Joe traditionally. Now, IDW did some crazy things, but for example, Nemesis Enforcer taking out, all the Dreadnoughts. And, really much of it off panel. I think that's one of the things I appreciate is that there's while we do see lots of blood sometimes, there is a little bit of Hitchcock to it as well, where we think we're seeing more than we're really seeing. And I'm hoping
a lot of times hiding stuff can be more impactful than showing it.
Our
having to artfully
Yeah.
Having to artfully hide stuff is definitely sometimes more impactful.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
Sure. I'm a big horror fan, and I think all my books take a lot of those like horror tricks. Like you said, Hitchcock, and like I look at Carpenter, and I look at all these. Like, I'm obsessed with like why horror movie directors do what they do, but I always find it really fascinating that like sometimes my favorite movies were not the ones that had the giant big budgets, and you look at like the tricks they would do. Even if you look at like, this is not a horror movie, but I'll use this last example, is that like you look at what Peter Jackson was doing with Fellowship of the Ring, because it's like that's a guy who was making low budget horror movies and then suddenly had to make this big movie. And it's interesting when you watch that first one where they were the most low budget. That's the most low budget of all of them, is that first one. And you can see all the little like horror movie tricks that he does in that movie. And it's like, I think it adds to the charm of that movie because he doesn't show everything. There's not everything is in CGC scenes. It's like he did all this little like movie magic. And I think the same way about this stuff is we always talk about comic book magic. And it's like, what are those comic book magic tricks? And Tom is really good at that. It's like trying to find those comic movie tricks. And that's even the thing when we're doing Cobra Commander was that of like, okay, I have an age rating. I can't go over the age rating. So how do we do this? And then it was like, oh, I'll just show it. We just show Cobra Commander smiling, right? Yeah. And it was like, in a lot of ways, that was the issue that sort of helped me click into a couple things. And I also think with stuff we were doing, it was like, again, a reminder, this is not what you expect. Like that's what Cobra Commander did as a series for us, was it really said, not what you're going to expect. And same with what Tom was doing, where it was like, when you look at Duke #1, where it was like, here's Duke, you know. The first 3 pages of that book is like, here's Duke, man of action, saving people. Big 2-page spread where he's like shooting at people, saving a kid, just like that is Duke. And then the page, and he's like at his worst. He's rock bottom. And it was like, we were just trying to remind everybody, like, listen, we love it too. You're going to get the stuff you love, but we have to drive in a different direction with this book. And I think that's what we were able to do, like right out the gate. Everything we've done with Energon Universe is really telling people, like, this is not exactly what you think. You know, it's like even with Transformers, it's like killing Bumblebee in the first issue. It's like, you know, it's very like, hey guys, this is not what you think it's going to be. And I think that's what's been, like you're saying, part of the unpredictable charm of it. Like having Baroness be a G.I. Joe. You know?
Well, it's with a lot of what's happened. We've got to wrap things up in just a second here, but just real quick, a lot of what's happened, it's all about creating stakes and humanizing these characters that over the years have become these archetypes, these superhero type characters. You gotta, like you said with Duke, you got to bring them back down. You got to make them a little more relatable to the reader.
I didn't want to write them as superheroes. That was part of it. I didn't want to write them as superheroes. Usually get some questions. Do you want to try to burn through them in the next like 30 seconds before Shannon is like, you have to go now.
Let me, I'm going to throw.
Tell her, is there chat here? Oh, 5-minute warning. I see it. Okay.
We've got like 30
We got like a minute
left.
or something. Yeah.
We'll throw one out here. Our pal Wreck Ship. How much synergy is there between the Energon comics and the classified line? Just sort of quick encapsulation. What's the communication there?
We talk a lot. I mean, Skybound, they particularly talk to Hasbro a lot. That's what the question is. Oh, with classified, like with Hasbro. Yeah, they talk a lot. Like,
because Raptor, you mentioned Raptor.
We definitely don't. Yeah. We definitely are not. One thing that's important to us is we do talk to them. And I know Skybound has a really great relationship with Hasbro. It is, we're not a toy line tie-in. Like that's something that Robert always like, talk about. But like, you know, I mean, I'll talk to Lenny at conventions, and there's a couple other people that work at Hasbro that I email with, and they're pretty. They know what we're doing. We know what they're doing. But even that being said, whenever we're introducing a new character, we don't automatically look at classified. Tom actually does a design of them for the book.
They're very open. I think the vast majority of characters are original designs by me. I think there's a couple that I've used, mostly the classified look, but everyone otherwise has totally original design.
I really like that, and I like the idea that Hasbro then has the potential to come back around, and maybe we'll get a figure of that Energon look. But I like the comic being its own thing. Well, guys, we got to wrap it up.
Thank you so much.
I've got to be respectful of your time and of Shannon's. That was awesome. Everybody's stoked for Dreadnought War, and hopefully we'll be talking to you again soon.
Yeah, I hope you like it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks a lot, guys.
Bye.
Smash that like button if you like Needless Things.